A 15mm artillery shell. Looks simple. Steel tube, explosive charge, done. But there's a substance inside that shell, and inside almost every bullet, every tank round, every artillery charge on Earth, that the entire Western world has quietly run out of the ability to make enough of it. It's not steel. It's not gunpowder. Not exactly. It's a cotton-based chemical called nitrocellulose. And right now, NATO, the US, and Europe combined cannot produce enough of it to supply a single mid-sized war. This is the story of the ingredient nobody's heard of, that's quietly deciding who wins the next one. So what actually is nitrocellulose? Take cotton. Treat it with acid. What comes out the other end is a material that burns incredibly fast and incredibly hot. Energetic enough to launch a shell hundreds of kilometers, fast enough to fire a rifle round in a fraction of a second. Every modern army on Earth depends on it. It's made by treating cotton fibers or wood pulp with nitric and sulfuric acid, then dehydrating the result into an extremely energetic material, sometimes called gun cotton, that becomes the propellant inside almost every artillery shell and bullet fired today. No nitrocellulose, no propellant. No propellant, no shell leaves the barrel. It's that simple. And that's exactly the problem. Now, let's be precise about what this story actually is. The West hasn't stopped making weapons. Factories are running, contracts are signed, shells are rolling off lines every day. The problem is narrower, and somehow scarier. It can't make enough of them fast enough to sustain a long, large-scale war. That distinction matters because it's the whole story. Here's where it gets crazy. Europe has pledged to produce over 1 million artillery shells a year by 2027. Big, confident number. Except there's a catch. No nitrocellulose means no shells. Europe's entire nitrocellulose production, spread across Germany, France, Czechia, and Poland, adds up to somewhere between 4,500 and 10,000 tons a year. Sounds like a lot until you do the math on demand. Supplying Ukraine alone could require over 6,000 tons a year, and Europe's own targets push total need closer to 20,000 tons. Do the subtraction. That's a shortfall of at least 10,000 tons a year, possibly as much as 14,000 for the foreseeable future. This isn't a factory problem. You can't just build a new shell line and call it done. A Czech defense industry leader put it simply. Building a new artillery factory is easy, but you can't quickly scale up nitrocellulose production. It can take roughly 3 years just to expand powder output. 3 years. In a war that moves in weeks. Sit with that for a second. The West spent 60 years building stealth fighters, satellite networks, precision missiles, the most advanced military technology humanity has ever produced. And when real demand finally hit, the bottleneck wasn't any of that. It was a chemical made from cotton, the same basic compound that's been around since the 1800s. So how did the West, the wealthiest military alliance in history, end up unable to make enough of its own gunpowder? 2 reasons. First, nobody saw it coming. After the Cold War ended, Western militaries assumed big land wars were over. Munitions production shifted to small, occasional batch orders, and the entire supply chain shrank to match, quietly losing the ability to scale back up fast. Factories closed, expertise retired. Why keep a giant chemical plant running if you're not fighting anyone? Second, production quietly moved to Asia, and specifically to China. By 2026, it had become clear that the Western defense industrial base had allowed this entire supply chain to consolidate in Asia, with China controlling a major share of it. Global nitrocellulose supply still depends heavily, around 70%, on Chinese-sourced cotton linters, the raw cotton material the whole process starts with. Translation?
the alliance that's arming Ukraine against a partner of Russia has spent years quietly depending on materials sourced through that same partner's economy. You don't get to unwind that in a press release.
To their credit, everyone's scrambling now. France's Urenco has restarted production at its Bergerac site. Rheinmetall is converting a civilian chemical plant in Germany over to military-grade output. A Czech-led group has taken over a former East German production facility, and Poland is building an entirely new hub. Rheinmetall alone is aiming for 1.1 million 155mm shells a year by 2027, a staggering number on paper.
But here's the catch hiding in plain sight. Many of these projects are still early stage, realistically not ready until 2026 or later. Some governments are even researching ways around the bottleneck entirely. BAE Systems has developed a process that could make propellants and explosives without needing nitrocellulose or nitroglycerin at all, with first industrial production targeted for late 2026. Others are experimenting with wood pulp-based nitrocellulose instead of cotton, specifically to cut reliance on Asian supply. It's a full industrial sprint. The question nobody can answer yet, is it fast enough?
Here's the bigger picture, and the part that should worry strategists more than generals. Right now, this bottleneck is being stress-tested by one war, Ukraine. But militaries don't get to choose how many fires they fight at once. If a serious conflict broke out in Eastern Europe, the Pacific, and the Middle East at the same time, even partially, the deciding factor wouldn't be who has better pilots or smarter generals. It would be industrial capacity. Whoever can keep making the boring chemical that goes boom in bulk for years without running dry. That's not a hypothetical military planners are ignoring. It's the exact reason all this scrambling is happening right now, while there's still time to fix it.
That's the missing ingredient. Not a missile, not a tank. A 19th century cotton compound, quietly deciding the limits of 21st century war. If this is the kind of story you want more of, the hidden mechanics behind the headlines, subscribe. Because this is exactly what Word Toad is going to keep digging into.